Welcome back, everyone. We have an update from Highland Copper Company. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol HDRSF and on the TSXV under the symbol HI. It's a Canadian company focused on exploring and developing copper projects in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm happy to welcome back CEO Barry O'Shea. Welcome, Barry.
Thanks, Anna. It's nice to be here again. I think we actually last presented in the May timeframe, and certainly pleased to report that in the intervening period, our share price is up 25%. And I think that really speaks to the strong U.S. Macro story that continues to play out, but also our execution as a company. So, through this very brief presentation, I'll give you a quick refresher on the key assets of the company, but also speak to progress in the intervening period. And as a starting point, I guess I'd say there's no better time to have a domestic U.S. asset from a copper perspective. Even if you see in recent days and certainly weeks and months, there is increasing visibility to the criticality and the importance of copper to the U.S., both from an energy perspective, but also applications from a defense perspective. And that obviously led to federal measures in and around increasing domestic critical mineral production. We're certainly seeing the benefit for that play through in copper. And so a quick refresher on our two assets. And Copperwood is our main 100% owned project. It's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a wonderful historic mining district. And I characterize Copperwood as one of the most advanced copper developer projects in the US at this point in time. And what that means is, first and foremost, the project is fully permitted. That's behind us. That key risk is behind us. Feasibility study is complete. We've actually initiated early site works and are progressing in our engineering. All of these things that turn the project from being something that is, a project that sits at that feasibility engineering level to a project that is tangibly ready to be built. And of course, our goal is to initiate construction in 2026. Not to be lost in our story is our 1/3 stake in the White Pine project. That's about an hour down the road from Copperwood. It's a past producer, a wonderful, large 50-year producer over many decades. We, alongside our JV partner, are continuing to advance that project and keeping it really nicely sequenced. Together, the two projects on a 100% basis represent 70 to 75,000 tons of copper production over 2 decades. Very meaningful from a U.S. supply-demand perspective. But it's all about execution now. I had reminded you last time that through 2024, 2025, we've done some very good site work, setting up our initial stream diversion structures, doing our important environmental mitigations, creating new wetland. This has all set some real positivity for us in terms of interactions with contractors, unions, establishing our local team, setting up an understanding with the local authorities that we're going to operate well, certainly from an environmental perspective. At the same time, and we've advanced over the 6 months on engineering, this is an important piece to set ourselves up for success in the financing process that we'd expect to initiate in early 2026, leading to a positive construction decision. But you really need to understand your project, its schedule, its capital and operating costs, and we're progressing speedily through that with our key partners that we assigned in Q1 of this year, critical as we step through. And also a reminder, and I want to talk about a couple of catalysts here, that when you work through your engineering, another important piece is improving the project. One of the key areas we think we can do so is through metallurgical updates. Of course, copper price is one of the most significant economic impactors of a mine, but the recovery of copper is arguably the second one. We believe we can increase our copper recoveries, arguably at lower operating costs. That is something that we had committed to the market, getting news in before the end of Q3. We remain on track with that, alongside updates on our engineering progress. One other thing that I wanted to note, I think that's happened in the last few months as well, is that we've also really stepped into a better understanding of potential federal support for our project. I think naturally everybody knows we remain in the running for a grant from the state of Michigan, and that's wonderful should that come to be. We're also taking positive steps to really understand what's available at a federal level. I was in Washington about 4 weeks ago and had personal meetings with about 5 or 6 federal senators and members of Congress. I was really quite taken aback at their level of understanding of the overall issue and the importance of domestic production. The read through there is that I think we'll have some positive results as we consider potential funding through a host of agencies, the DOE, DOD, and U.S.A. And while we're spending obviously our time and effort and capital on Copperwood, our partners Kinterra at White Pine are progressing speedily, keeping White Pine nicely sequenced. I mentioned that value is really important to the overall story as well. And just a last update, and I guess I'd refresh you that we see the second half of this year as really catalyst heavy. You know, we spent the last 6 to 12 months doing good site work, initiating our engineering, and now we're starting to see some of the outcomes. So in Q3 of this year, in the next couple of months, we expect to put out announcements on our metallurgical test program, announcements as we transition from our phase 1 to our phase 2 engineering, increasing the credibility and understanding of the project, and ideally closure on both state and federal funding opportunities. And of course, that leads into the first half of next year, where you really move towards what I consider the biggest catalyst, stepping towards financing and construction decision of the Copperwood project. And as noted, Kinterra at the same time keep their catalyst moving on White Pine. All in, you know, a really good time as we think about the company in terms of short-term and mid-term catalysts. A really nice positive macro environment in the U.S., and we'll continue our execution. And so with that brief update, Anna, I'm very happy to pass back if there are any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Barry. Yes. Michael asked, how does Highland compare to Calinex mines? Can you talk about that?
You know, I shouldn't say I can speak specifically in terms of the comparisons. Certainly when I look at, you know, us relative broadly to peer assets, I think our biggest distinguishing feature is that we're fully permitted and in a tier 1 jurisdiction. Naturally, that binary thought around whether the project can or cannot be built is risk that is behind us and puts us in a very good position.
And can you talk a little bit about your exit strategy? Is it to sell projects or to develop and produce?
I think that the strongest thing that you can do is create a viable plan to build and operate on your own. So we've put a strong team in place. We've initiated site construction. We're working through engineering with incredibly strong and reputable partners. All the things that will allow us to build the project. And by the way, if someone wants to intervene and take a look at us from an acquisition perspective, naturally, that is management's obligation to do so. But to entice investors of that nature, really what you need to be doing is advancing and de-risking the project, which we're doing on both sides for Copperwood and White Pine.
And are you able to secure external financing through partnerships?
Yeah, we certainly believe that we can. Naturally, it would be a wonderful boost if we are able to, you know, before going to the private markets, see some funding either from the state or from the federal government. But in any case, we know that copper is critical in the U.S. We know that the long-term view for copper prices is strong, and the investment base, both on the debt and equity side, will be available for us next year.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this update today, Barry.
Thanks very much.
All right, everyone, we'll be right back.